as well. Neeraj Kishan Kaul is now saying, what kind of argument is that? The governor has recovered from COVID just 2 days ago. So a person who has recovered from illness should not discharge his constitutional duties, is it? There is information available in public domain. Independent MLAs have written to governor, so he has taken a decision on relevant materials. We have Tom Vadakkan, Swapna Kothari and Tushar Gupta also with us. Very quickly, Swapna Kothari, your legal view on the kind of observations, and there are three main observations that have been made, very interesting interventions that have been made by the Supreme Court so far. One, saying, how can you decide anywhere except the floor where the numbers are present? Second is also about where the court said that if a government knows it does not have a majority, then how can they seek disqualification? And third, that you do not need the advice of Council of Ministers to order a floor test. Where do you think this is going? Swapna Kothari.
Padmaja, from the questions that the Supreme Court has posed to Dr. Singhvi, the writing on the wall is very clear. I don't think the Supreme Court is interested in stalling the protest at all. That's number one. Number two is that it is, very clear that it's not going to suspect the governor. The governor is the constitutional head of the state.
Okay.
It has to rely upon the discretion of the governor because the governor, under the constitution, has discretionary powers to order a protest.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think already from Aurangabad we are getting in individuals who are reacting to the renaming. Let's quickly listen into that. Thoughts on this, Tushar Gupta, do you think that Uddhav Thackeray has pulled a rabbit out of the hat? Suddenly you have Aurangabad turning into Sambhaji Nagar.
Too little, too late, Padmaja. Too little, too late, too desperate. That's the story of the cabinet decisions that were taken earlier today. Uddhav Thackeray knows the ground is slipping before him. The Supreme Court is not entertaining the shallow arguments of Abhishek Manu Singhvi. The government is all set to fall. If Uddhav Thackeray had to carry forward his Hindutva agenda, the one he inherited from Balasaheb Thackeray ji, he had to do it 2.5 years ago.
Okay,
now
the General Secretary of Organization of the BJP, BL Santosh, has just reacted to the name change, saying these three parties, Shiv Sena, NCP and Congress, who came together for power sharing, think that people of Maharashtra are fools by renaming cities on the verge of imminent collapse of government, is nothing but hypocrisy. All three parties and their leaders are nothing but laughing stock, Tom Vadakkan. But at least tomorrow in the House, you would expect that Uddhav Thackeray will go in saying, look, I did it. I fulfilled the dream of my late father. Aurangabad is now Sambhaji Nagar. Mr. Vadakkan. All right. I think there seems to be a bit of an audio trouble over there. But if you can quickly react to that, Swapna Kothari, also to the legal point that you were making earlier. Sorry, go on.
Right. So what I was saying is that the governor is the constitutional head of the state. The governor, under the constitution, has discretionary powers, whether it's on the advice of the Council of Ministers, which is not the case here, also on the advice of the leader of the opposition, which was the case yesterday. All his own mainly considers that even without anybody asking him, even if he thinks that the government in power has lost the majority, he has got asked to order the votes. It is regardless of the fact of the disqualification proceedings pending in the Supreme Court by the Deputy Speaker, who's now one of the other issues, which was being raised, is that the Deputy Speaker himself is in question. So how are we going to conduct the protest?
When you have no moral authority, then how can you ask for the disqualification of anyone else? Mohit Bajaj of the Shiv Sena, Manaspreet Thapar, political analyst, also joining us. Mohit Bajaj, let's first ask you about Sambhaji Nagar. 2.5 years later. Why? Why 2.5 years later?
Actually, right now we are in the power, and first of all, very good evening to all the viewers of Times Now. It's a very proud moment for all Maharashtrians, especially for the Shiv Sainiks as well.
That's great, sir, but you could have been proud 2.5 years earlier. Why did you wait for 2.5 years to be proud?
Actually, at that time, maybe we are fighting with the COVID and all the related concerns. So that's why maybe it is late. But right now, the Honorable CM of Maharashtra, Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray, thinks that it is our humble duty and we need to take the concerned decision immediately. So he taken that decision, and I guess it's a very proud moment for each and everyone, especially for the Shiv Sena.
But many people are saying that this is a sign of desperation. You know you are going tomorrow, so this is sort of a last minute, last ditch effort?
Already the day when this issue happened, already that decision is already taken. Our honorable CM already left the Varsha bungalow. Already the CM bungalow has been left out and he moved to his own residence, Matoshiri. So that decision already have been taken. We are no longer, we didn't want the CM chair. We are not in like that we are, we only
Mr.
want...
Bajaj, I am not entirely sure that you are speaking exactly what the Shiv Sena wants at this point, because if you did not want the CM's chair, you would not be in the CM's chair. It's as simple as that. Nobody is actually gluing you to the CM's chair. You left the house, you could have left the office as well. That being said, okay, Tom Vadakkan, this was something that the Shiv Sena is very proud of, and they've pulled a fast one on you, Mr. Vadakkan.
It was a fast one. They themselves realized this is the last, I shouldn't call it a last supper, but then this is actually a situation where the last wishes are being propagated, and the reality is dawned that Hindutva was sent on exile during this 2.5 years. Now this is a blatant attempt to try and catch up, but I think it's too late, too little for realizing that Hindutva is gone. So the real Hindutva team is going to be swollen, and shortly they will come back and they will assert what Hindutva stands for. And that is the reality. This is the last-ditch effort of the last dispensation to try and retry something if possible.
Manasvi Thapar, trying to go out on a Hindutva high. The interesting thing though is that when all of this was happening in the assembly, 2 ministers of the Congress walked out. One wonders why. Apparently, they suddenly remembered some personal work that they had.
So, Padmaja ji, I think there's too much which the BJP and the BJP allied spokesperson have to speak about it. I don't think there's anything wrong in naming Aurangabad as Sambhaji Nagar. I think it's a great thing for any Hindu, and as Shiv Sena is a prominent right party, and they have done that. So I don't think there's any kind of.
So it's very funny because 1 month ago, Uddhav ji was asked about these demands, and then he said, हमें rename करने की जरूरत नहीं है क्योंकि हमारे लिए वो हमेशा संभाजी नगर है. अगर उस वक्त आपके लिए संभाजी नगर था तो अब rename करने की क्या जरूरत है? अगर अब rename करने की जरूरत है तो 1 महीना पहले क्यों नहीं rename कर दिया?
नहीं, I don't understand संभाजी नगर करने से किसको प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, बल्कि
प्रॉब्लम किसी को नहीं हो रही है. हम ये पूछ रहे हैं कि अभी क्यों कर रहे हैं? 2.5 साल पहले कर देते.
ये तो आप ये बोल सकते 20 साल पहले कर देते, 40 साल पहले कर देते.
20 साल पहले उद्धव जी मुख्यमंत्री नहीं थे ना, वो तो 2.5 साल पहले बने.
अभी उनको रियलाइज हो रहा है कि वो शायद अभी सीएम नहीं रहेंगे, शायद शिवसेना टूट रही है, तो दिस इज द लास्ट अपॉर्चुनिटी.
नाउ यू हिट द नेल ऑन द हेड. तो अब रियलाइज हो रहा है कि सत्ता जा रही है तो संभाजी याद आ रहे हैं. 2.5 साल सत्ता थी तो संभाजी भूल गए.
पद्मजा जी, हंसने वाली बात नहीं है. संभाजी नगर अगर कोई कर रहा है या कोई भी नाम वापस आ रहा है,
हंसने वाली बात है कि आप ऐसी टाइमिंग कर रहे हैं and you expect people to believe that this is about the pride of Maharashtra.
अभी तो इलेक्शन है नहीं, तो इसका पॉलिटिकल इम्प्लीकेशन आज तो होने नहीं वाला. दिस इज नॉट अ पॉलिटिकल गिमिक एनीमोर. अगर होना
really don't think this is a political move. Really, इलेक्शन नहीं है सर, कल ट्रस्ट वोट है.
तो उससे क्या ट्रस्ट वापस आ जाएगा? अगर द रिबेल एमएलएस आर गोइंग टू बी बैक because of Sambhaji Nagar, do you think these MLAs who have rebelled are so naive? I don't think so.
Answer that. Do you think the trust is going to come back just by renaming? Tushar Gupta.
Oh, not at all. One Shiv Sena spokesperson here says we've already left the CM chair. I think he doesn't realize, but he's indirectly admitting that the government is going to fall tomorrow. Then we have another spokesperson saying that we do not expect the rebel MLAs to come back. I think there is an indirect admission from the spokespersons themselves that this is just a last-ditch effort, a desperate effort to go out from the office, just posturing as a Hindutva leader when they have kicked, abused, disregarded and dismissed the entire Hindutva agenda for the last 2.5 years. Uddhav Thackeray today has no moral right to claim to be a Hindutva leader because he's the same leader who tied up with the NCP and the Congress 2.5 years ago. Today, whatever he's done should have been done long ago. Why was he waiting for this day? What prompted this decision? The entire shenanigan has been going on for the last 2 weeks.
I think what prompted this decision is quite clear, because from all apparent indications, and let's get a quick update on what is happening inside court as well. The court is asking some very pointed questions, Mr. Mohit Bajaj, and the court is saying, If not inside the assembly, then where are you going to prove your numbers? Why are you against a trust vote? How do you think your numbers are going to be proven? Through a Twitter poll? Mr. Bajaj?
It should be on the floor test only. Yeah, it should be on the floor only. But the biggest question here coming in the Supreme Court is like that all the MLAs is having given the time up to 12th only, up to 11th or 12th, whatever the
Sir,
date.
if you think that the numbers are to be decided inside the House, why are you opposing it? You literally have gone to court opposing it. If you also agree that the numbers have to be decided in court, why are you opposing it? दूध का दूध पानी का पानी हो जाएगा. कल दिखा दीजिए कि है आपके पास.
Because there is no. Actually, the biggest confusion is कि हम लोगों ने अपनी तरफ से उच्चतम न्यायालय माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जो एमएलएस गए थे यहाँ से, और उन एमएलएस ने पूरे के पूरे नंबर्स को मतलब उनका जो उनका कैंसिलेशन है, या यूं कहिए कि जो एमएलएस का स्थगित करना था वो वहां से नहीं होना है. 11 तारीख तक उनको समय मिला हुआ है. अगर कल मान लीजिए वो एमएलए ही नहीं रहते हैं कल के बाद, मतलब 11 के डिसीजन के बाद, तो वो हम लोग रीशकल नहीं कर सकते, उसको डिसीजन को वापस नहीं ले सकते. दैट इज द बिगेस्ट थिंग.
Okay, Neelashish is also live with us now. Neelashish, a quick update from the Supreme Court. What's happening right now?
Well, Senior Advocate Neeraj Kishan Kaul is taking the court through his arguments with regard primarily to the Nabam Rebia judgment. At this point, he is stating that there can be no grounds to say that a floor test cannot take place, and he is in fact quoting from the judgment to say that it would be constitutionally impermissible for a speaker to adjudicate upon disqualification petitions under the 10th schedule while a notice of resolution for his own removal from the speaker, from the office of speaker is pending. Of course, this is the case wherein he is presenting that as far as the disqualification notices are concerned, that cannot be decided upon before the decision on the removal of the speaker is concerned, and that is something that Manu Singh had stated, that a floor test can't take place in case the decision of disqualification is not taken before that kind of a situation. So continually the argument is based on the removal of the speaker and having a floor test, and the competence of the governor to in fact issue the kind of order that he did as far as calling for a floor test is concerned. Now, as far as the floor test is concerned, he is Neeraj Kishan Kaul is also quoting from the Madhya Pradesh case wherein it was stated that the floor test can brook no delay since the authority of the government presided over by the Chief Minister depends on the Council of Ministers continuing to have faith of the legislative body as a collective entity. So again, Neeraj Kishan Kaul pressing the requirement to test the numbers on the floor of the House, Padmaja.
All right, so ultimately that's where the test is going to happen. Tom Vadakar, many would also argue that there is a little bit of dodginess in your camp as well. Why else would the rebels today go from Guwahati to Goa and not come to Mumbai instead?
Is there a fixed route to come from Guwahati to Mumbai? I mean, they can take a route via Goa, why not? And then they are there on the road. There's nothing dodgy about it. They wanted to take that route. They've taken it.
No, but why should they go to Goa? If they are confident of the numbers, their constituencies are in Maharashtra, they should come back. Why are they sitting in Goa today?
No, they felt like traveling via Goa. I mean, what is the question about why they went to Goa? They have the numbers. They're comfortable. They will come to on the occasion of the vote.
Right. Tushar Gupta also wants to intervene. Tushar Gupta.
See, there is one important point which has been discussed in the Supreme Court, and this is Advocate Kaul reading out from the judgment of the Nabam Rebia decision only. It says that if the majority of the then members of the Assembly and the floor test happens with 10 members of the Assembly which are present and the majority is proven, then the entire question of disqualification will go away. So right now what the Shiv Sena really needs is for the MLAs to be disqualified, for the Assembly size to come down, so that they can claim a wafer-thin majority at the end of it. But what the precedent has been said by the Supreme Court earlier is that if a floor test happens and if the members present, which in this case will also include the rebel MLAs and the BJP...
Okay, there is big news coming in. We'll get Arunil Sadadekar on the phone line. Big news is that even as the BJP meeting is set to begin shortly at the Taj Hotel in Mumbai, the Chief Minister is sitting and watching what is happening inside the Supreme Court. If today the Supreme Court does not rule in his favor and decides to let the trust vote go on, will Uddhav Thackeray quit today itself? Arunil, what are you learning?
Well, as per my close sources, Padmaja, this is a very crucial development, very crucial piece of information that we are breaking for our viewers. I spoke to somebody who was there in the cabinet as well. The body language also spoke that the CM clearly doesn't have the numbers and he wouldn't be facing that embarrassment inside the assembly as well. If the Honorable Apex Court doesn't give its verdict in the favor of CM Uddhav Thackeray and the Maha Aghadi, yes, their eyes are clearly on the verdict from the Apex Court. But if it doesn't come, then as per my sources inform us that the CM may step down because he clearly doesn't have the numbers. The kind of body language that he showcased inside the cabinet meeting as well, when he walked inside the Mantralaya, he was basically was thankful to each and everybody inside the Mantralaya as well. He walked inside with folded hands. When he went inside the cabinet meeting, he thanked each and every cabinet minister, basically saying that they have been really very helpful in the last 2.5 years. He also asked for an apology if there was any mistake that was committed from his end. So it clearly showcases, it basically establishes, and some of the close sources from the other two parties as well, the Congress and the NCP. I just had a word with them. They've been saying this, that the numbers are clearly not in the favor of CM Uddhav Thackeray, and that's why Sharad Pawar has also more or less stayed out of this fight as well. He doesn't want to be part of this losing battle because it seems like Devendra Fadnavis and Eknath Shinde clearly have an edge over here, and CM Uddhav Thackeray may not be wanting to face embarrassment inside the assembly, facing a floor test, and he is likely, as per our sources, is expected to step down if the Supreme Court verdict is not in his favor.
Big story that we are breaking right now on Times Now, that Uddhav Thackeray, remember, 2 times earlier that he had decided to quit. Apparently, he was convinced by Sharad Pawar to stick on, but today he is in all likelihood going to put in his papers if the Supreme Court verdict goes against his expectation. Right now, the Shiv Sena has argued against the floor test tomorrow, but if no relief is granted to them from the Supreme Court, sources are telling Arunil that in all likelihood, Uddhav Thackeray is going to resign. Big story right now. Very quickly, let me also get in a legal opinion on this. What happens, Swapna Kothari, if Uddhav Thackeray steps down today itself? Then will there be a floor test? What happens next?
Well, I don't think then there should be any protest, because if he resigns, then obviously the next party that wants to show to the governor that this is our majority, then I think the floor test, if at all, would be a mere formality and cosmetic. Because if the Chief Minister himself resigns, then obviously the Council of Ministers is expunged in that sense, or annulled, as you would call it. So constitutionally, obviously, there is no government. Then the next...
With that breaking news right now, this is big news coming in. The big news is that Uddhav Thackeray, in case you do not have the Supreme Court staying the floor test, could resign. Yes, please go on, Mr. Kothari.
Right. So, Padmaja, it's very simple. Then the floor test will be merely cosmetic, if at all. Does the governor then has an option straight away that, look, Mr. Thackeray has resigned, the current NVA government is no longer in power. So please, Mr. BJP or, Mr. Shinde, can you please come forward and show your numbers? And then I'll bring you in as the next party, because that is what he has to do. He's got 2 options. One is to follow a presidential form of government. That can happen only under Article 356 if there is no other party trying to prove its majority. But that is not the case here. There are other parties already ready. And it's as simple as that. That will be more of a cakewalk. Then there is hardly any excitement there at all in that sense.
I just see the images on your screen right now. This is of Uddhav Thackeray when he was leaving from the meeting at Mantralaya today. The body language where he actually is seemingly bidding goodbye to everyone with folded hands, doing namaste. Is this his swan song. A flurry of decisions taken of renaming. What is it that Uddhav Thackeray said today? Let's quickly, in fact, get you that also. When he said that if I have hurt anyone, I am sorry for that. The comments that were made by Uddhav Thackeray. All right, let's quickly take our viewers through what Mr. Thackeray said today soon after the meeting got over. He said, we have been betrayed by our own. In case it pains me, the fact that people who we considered our own have betrayed us. He also goes on to say, I thank you for your cooperation, and that if I have done anything to hurt anyone, forgive my mistake for the last 2.5 years, if any at all. If I have made any mistake for the last 2.5 years, I am sorry for that. This is huge. This is huge. What do you make of this, Manasvi Thapar? That today, Uddhav Thackeray, in all likelihood, if the Supreme Court says, go ahead with the floor test, could quit, which means it's an admission he doesn't have the numbers.
Let the floor test be there. I think we should not take out any conclusions as of now. Let the floor test be there. If he has to resign, he will resign. If there are no numbers, he cannot be the chief minister. That's very clear. So it's a democratic country. You need to have numbers.
No, but what we are learning is that he will not go in for a floor test.
Maybe if he feels that he does not have the number, and I think by this count of understanding, he would have this clear understanding as of now. So he'll take his call. So I don't think we should be speculating anything. I think in the next few hours, everything would be very clear. The next 24 hours are very crucial for this. So I think I'm not going to get into any kind of speculation.
In fact, not just the next 24 hours, the next few minutes are going to be very important in the next few minutes. And that's what Arunil is saying. The next few minutes, if the Supreme Court says go ahead with the floor test, in all likelihood, Uddhav Thackeray could be putting in his papers. You have this name-changing spree, the Hindutva card being played. You suddenly have Aurangabad replaced by Sambhaji Nagar. You have Osmanabad also renamed. You have Navi Mumbai Airport being renamed. And now after this, you have Uddhav Thackeray keeping a close eye on what happens inside the Supreme Court. Arunil, tell me again about the kind of body language, because you've been commenting, a lot of people, reporters who were there at the Mantralaya have been commenting on the particular gesture of Uddhav Thackeray today, where he came out, he spoke, he asked for an apology, and he also says, I've been betrayed. But the body language, comment on that.
Well, if you speak about the body language, Padmaja, I was there right at the gate when CM Uddhav Thackeray stepped out from his car. He basically stepped out with folded hands. There were many people. We usually come to the Mantralaya when cabinet meetings have been held, but so many people I have not seen till now. There were many people, basically workers inside the Mantralaya. They had come down to basically have a last glimpse, possibly the last glimpse of CM Uddhav Thackeray, and that's when he basically greeted everybody with folded hands. He went inside, and inside the cabinet meeting as well, the kind of words that he used with his cabinet ministers, thanking everybody for their support in the last 2.5 years, also basically asking for an apology if there was a mistake from his end, and also basically he took an attack on the defecting MLAs, also mentioning about the fact that I was basically backstabbed by my own only. That's what he mentioned inside the meeting. So after coming out of the cabinet meeting, also when he went down in the Mantralaya, he again, the body language seemed like he's bidding goodbye to everybody. Another interesting point, Padmaja, is that when CM Uddhav Thackeray was leaving the Varsha Bungalow, that development happened around 5 days ago. That time also he had mentioned to his party workers, he had mentioned to the staff inside Varsha that this is his last day in Varsha. He is not going to return back to the official residence of Maharashtra Chief Minister. So there also he had made it very much clear. So yes, they have been presenting that they want to wage a fight. However, looking at the body language from the other two parties as well, they have not been involved. And coming to another important development was that when it was decided that Aurangabad will be renamed as Sambhaji Nagar, Aslam Sheikh, one of the key ministers, Congress leader, he stepped out of the meeting. He went out of the meeting and he didn't even return back inside the cabinet meeting. So yes, the Congress leaders were miffed with this decision of CM Uddhav Thackeray, but possibly this was his last day, and this government was formed on that understanding that Aurangabad will indeed be named as Sambhaji Nagar as per the wish of late Barasaheb Thackeray, the wish that Barasaheb Thackeray had made way back in 1988. A slew of decisions were made.
Let's get a quick update, in fact, from the Supreme Court as well. If we have Nilashish here with us, you have Neeraj Kishan Kaul, in fact, arguing, saying that the floor test cannot brook any delay at this point. Nilashish, give us a quick update of what is being argued right now, basically pushing for the immediacy of the floor test, and an important comment there being made saying this seems to show you don't have the numbers. So you're just delaying because you do not have the numbers. Over to you, Nilashish.
Chief Minister's reluctance.
Well, absolutely. Those are the basic contours of Neeraj Kishan Kaul's arguments. He's saying that the Chief Minister's reluctance to face a floor test will be prima facie construed that he has lost majority in the House. As far as Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi is concerned, Kaul says he had argued that the floor test will render infructuous the proceedings that are already before the Supreme Court. But when the Supreme Court says that they operate in distinct fields, then how can it be said that it will be infructuous? To prevent misuse and other political considerations coming in and preventing horse trade, the court has already asked the floor
And says, to sum up my propositions, the Speaker cannot decide at all as far as the disqualification notices are concerned. Disqualification and floor tests are two distinct fields as per the Supreme Court's precedents in this case. But Neeraj Kishan Kaul pushing again for a floor test to be ordered, saying in many ways, and the latest one being that the Chief Minister seems reluctant to face a floor test, and that should prima facie be construed as his understanding that he has already lost majority in the House.
Prima facie be construed as his understanding that he has already lost majority in the House, and the dance of democracy is decided on the floor of the House. Why are they shying away? This remains his entire argument. Let's not forget, of course, there are still arguments from the governor's side which need to be presented by Solicitor General Tushar Mehta. So the Supreme Court, of course, taking this matter very seriously.
Is asking how many dissident MLAs are there. Neeraj Kishan Kaul says 39 out of 55. So now in court, the exact number of the Shiv Sena MLAs who are dissidents has been put on record. Neeraj Kishan Kaul says 39 out of 55, and then Advocate Kaul says today we are the Shiv Sena. Manasvi Thapar. Here you have the Council for the Rebels saying today we are the Shiv Sena because more than 2/3 of the 55 Shiv Senics are with us. Manasvi Thapar.
Padmaja, I didn't get your question. Can you please repeat?
The question is, now clearly in court it has been said the real Shiv Sena is the one led by Eknath Shinde. The council for the group saying 39 out of 55, we're the real Shiv Sena. We're not the rebels, we are real.
But 16 are still facing disqualification. So that also needs to be quantified as of now. So will the 16 be disqualified by the speaker or not? That needs to know. And then will the 39 after 69 after 16 39 are there or not? We'll have to count that also.
Tushar Gupta.
That number is to be taken up.
Okay, Tushar Gupta.
See, that is the point I was addressing. The precedent that has been set by the Nawab Rabia decision says that tomorrow, if the MLAs can prove their majority, that is the new Shiv Sena and BJP, the disqualification question would stand null and void. That is from the precedent that has been set earlier. You cannot be thinking about disqualification after tomorrow if Shinde and BJP can prove the numbers. That's the larger point. That is what Advocate Kaul has just argued in the Supreme Court also just a while back, that this has been the precedent which has been set by the Supreme Court. That is why you have all the desperation from Shiv Sena to talk about the disqualification to stall the protest. If that was the question, that tomorrow these MLAs can be disqualified, why would they stall the floor test in the first place?
Manasvi Thapar.
So,
Why would
Where
you
is the stalling? Where is the stalling of floor test taken place?
You've
On
gone
the
to
contrary,
the Supreme Court trying to stall it. That is literally the petition in Supreme Court that floor test should not happen tomorrow. That's why we are sitting here for the last 5 years and listening to arguments.
Yeah, these rebels, if they were so worried about the floor test, they should have not gone to Surat and then Guwahati and then come back here. On the contrary, they should have stayed there, and they should have, in the assembly, went to the, before that, going to the assembly, they could have gone to the governor and they could have said that we want to go for a floor test. There is no confidence in this particular government. They did not do that. On the contrary, they left Maharashtra. And now they are saying they have the full numbers while sitting in Guwahati and now coming back to Maharashtra. I don't think that is how politics or democracy of this country functions. If you are not confident with the Vidhan Sabha, you go and
But
go
the
and have a
court is
floor
saying
test.
that the very bedrock of democracy is that you have to prove your numbers inside the assembly. That is literally the bedrock of democracy, that if you have the numbers, you prove it in the assembly.
So let there be a floor test, and the floor test is going to be there.
R16. Why are you going to Supreme Court opposing it?
Are 16 MLAs qualified as of now, or are they not facing disqualification?
Of course they are qualified as of now. If they haven't been disqualified, they are qualified
right now.
That is the moot question which is pending before the Supreme Court and with the Speaker.
But if tomorrow the floor test there,
and that has been, and on the contrary, that has been extended till 11th July.
Manasvi ji, the precedent is that if tomorrow Shinde and BJP can prove the numbers, the question of disqualification on 11th July will stand null and void. That is precisely why your party has gone to the Supreme Court to stall the floor test. If the question of disqualification would have lingered on even after tomorrow, even if you did not have the numbers, why would you have anything to worry about?
As of the 29th of June, these MLAs are not disqualified.
Exactly.
And tomorrow, Mohit Bajaj, if they vote, then they say we are the real Shiv Sena and we will vote against Uddhav Thackeray, who we do not believe to be the real Shiv Sena.
Actually, the first thing is everything is dependent only on the Supreme Court decision. For that we need to wait and watch for few minutes only, as you told also. So for that we need to wait for few minutes only. And now coming up for the tomorrow's floor test, whatever will happen, we'll ready to face the consequences or whatever the solution. After that we're going to decide what next we need to do. And while talking about the Shiv Sainik, each and every Shiv Sena person is standing with the Honorable Uddhav Thackeray because he is our chief. And if anybody is claiming that they are the Shiv Sena, it is the biggest question for us.
Okay.
For that we'll decide.
In fact, I'm sorry to break it to you, but perhaps it will be longer than we anticipated because Advocate Kaul has just completed his arguments and now Advocate Maninder Singh has begun his arguments. The court as it is has sat longer than its working hours. Let's get a quick word in from Neelashish because many would be wondering how long is this hearing going to go on because at least two more sides are to present their arguments. Neelashish, what do you anticipate?
Well, at this point, Padmaja, Senior Advocate Maninder Singh is arguing and he's in a way supplementing Neeraj Kishan Kaul's arguments. In fact, he says that whenever this court has sat this late, it has been to order a floor test. This is the first time when it is hearing a case this late to stop a floor test. Now, let's just say after this particular issue, after his particular arguments, we will move on to the governor also being represented by the Solicitor General Tushar Mehta. So we can expect another
one of those long hearings that goes on perhaps late into the night. We already have the court sitting way past the normal rising hour. It's 7:30, 4 p.m. is when the court usually rises. And now we have 7:30. The hearing is still going on. Maninder Singh for the Uddhav faction is arguing right now. And then the Solicitor General Tushar Mehta will also present his arguments. So how long do you think this could go on? Neelashish. Neelashish? All right, we will just try and get back to our reporters from Mumbai, from Delhi, get a quick update on what is happening right now. Just to recap for our viewers, The top 10 developments as of right now. You've got 3 major cities where most of the action is centered. One, of course, is Mumbai, where a meeting of the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi cabinet concluded about an hour ago. Second is Goa, from where the rebels have now gone to, from Guwahati. And third is Delhi, where a critical hearing is underway in the Supreme Court. Let's take a look at the top 10 developments at this point. What happened inside the meeting of the cabinet of the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi? I want to take a look at the first, the 10 top developments which have taken place at this point. In the MVA meeting, Uddhav Thackeray went on a name-changing spree. You've got 3 names which have been changed, that of Aurangabad, Osmanabad and of the Navi Mumbai airport. The second is that Uddhav Thackeray spoke about being hurt, spoke about betrayal by their own, and also said that if there has been any mistakes committed in the last 2.5 years, then he should be forgiven for it. The third thing that happened is that inside the Supreme Court, Team Shinde has said there should be no more delays in a floor test. The court has also made very important observations about how ultimately you should have numbers proven on the floor of the House. 3 important observations which were made by the court. Let's take you through that first. First of all, but let me get a quick update from what's happening in Mumbai right now, because I believe that the BJP has begun its meeting. What's happening in that meeting, Arunil?
Well, Padmaja, I'm understanding that around 8 p.m. today, 8 p.m. now, the BJP meeting, crucial BJP meeting will start at the Taj President's Hotel. All the MLAs have arrived over there. Basically, these MLAs, around 106 of them, as well as the independent MLAs who have given their support to the BJP, they will be staying back at the Taj President's Hotel only for the night. And tomorrow, again, a strategy will be made under the leadership of Devendra Fadnavis. How, if at all, CM Uddhav Thackeray is facing the floor test, then what will be the strategy of the BJP? They have been planning on those lines. At the 8 p.m. meeting is also about the similar lines only, basically planning what will be the strategy for the floor test if CM Uddhav Thackeray is ready to do it. If the governor asks Devendra Fadnavis to prove his majority, I understand from my sources that Devendra Fadnavis is extremely confident and basically saying that he has support of 170 MLAs, close to 170 MLAs support the BJP is confident of. He basically, a senior BJP leader gave out the numbers himself, saying that there are 128 MLAs, 106 of theirs, as well as around 22 MLAs from the smaller parties and the independent MLAs that have bestowed their support on the BJP. Now, if you also include the 39 odd MLAs that are there with Eknath Shinde, that is the Shiv Sena MLAs, then the number easily reaches close to the 170 mark. So yes, it seems like the game is over for CM Uddhav Thackeray. The only hope for them is that if the MLAs of the Shiv Sena who have gone to Guwahati, if they make a U-turn, if some of them are Trojan horses as per the claims of these Shiv Sena leaders, and after coming back to Mumbai, if they will come back to CM Uddhav Thackeray's fold, then probably something can be saved for this Maha Vikas Aghadi government. But with respect to the Shiv Sena party is concerned, there is a clear-cut divide, and that is why today's decision becomes extremely paramount and significant, because Sambhajinagar, the decision that has been taken, it has been revealed, it has been celebrated across different parts of Maharashtra. But Imtiaz Dalil, the AIMIM MP from Aurangabad, he has hit back at CM Uddhav Thackeray and the Maha Vikas Aghadi government, saying that on the last day of their cabinet, they have taken this decision, but you just cannot change history. AIMIM also has 2 MLAs. They have 2 votes in the Maharashtra Assembly. So has this decision impacted CM Uddhav Thackeray negatively? Will AIMIM will not vote for CM Uddhav Thackeray? That is also one big question that comes to the fore. Okay. But considering MIM's in the recent past, they have voted for the Maha Vikas Aghadi. Now, which side they will go, that only time will tell.
All right, let me quickly take the 3 main observations that have been made in court before I go across to Neelashish for more. The 3 questions that have been raised in the Supreme Court, 3 observations, as it were, that have been made in the Supreme Court. Question number 1, the observation number 1 that the Supreme Court made is, why where do you think that a test of numbers will happen if not inside the Supreme Court? What should governor do if minority government uses speaker to disqualify MLAs? Moot questions that have been raised by the Supreme Court. Can the governor direct a trial of strength, a floor test in that case? If you do not have the numbers, can you use the speaker? If you do not have the numbers, you don't have the moral authority, can you use the speaker then to disqualify MLAs? Assuming a floor test takes place, who are the people who are competent to participate? Can you, before a floor test, intervene and then ask for the disqualification of a few people so that they are not allowed to participate in the floor test? And finally, isn't the floor of the House the best place to decide impasse over majority? This seems, Neelashish, inexorably to be coming to a point where, according to the arguments being made, a floor test seems inevitable. Your thoughts?
Well, absolutely, Padmaja. If we look at very similar cases that have run late into the night the way this has, we have seen that the Supreme Court has always been inclined towards ordering a floor test, to allow a floor test. In fact, Maninder Singh, who is arguing right now on behalf of the Shinde camp, is also stating that the only times that the court has sat so late is to allow a floor test. For the first time the court is hearing a matter this late which opposes a floor test. So as far as cases that we have seen over the years, be it Karnataka, be it Madhya Pradesh, be it Maharashtra itself in 2019, we have seen that the Supreme Court has been inclined towards, in fact, allowing a floor test. And also today itself, the House is the only forum where such kind of an impasse can be removed, is what the Supreme Court said. It has also asked, suppose the government knows it has lost support, does not have majority, in that situation the Speaker takes action of disqualification, then what can the governor, or what should the governor do? Can he direct a trial of strength, a floor test? These are the questions that are being asked, and repeatedly the inclination seems like a writing on the wall that the Supreme Court is, of course, inclined towards a floor test.
This is very interesting. The big story breaking on Times Now, like we told you, that these are important questions that have been raised. And we are also breaking you the inside track that Uddhav Thackeray, the man you see on your screen right now, this is immediately after his cabinet meeting got over at Mantralaya, to the waiting public, talking about seeking apology if anything went wrong in the last 2.5 years. He, in all likelihood, could step down if the Supreme Court verdict doesn't go in his favor, if he's asked to prove his numbers. Who could take his place? Devendra Fadnavis is currently in Mumbai, in a hotel where all members of the BJP, their 100+ MLAs, have been told to assemble. That meeting is going to start at 8 p.m. But the man who could well be the next Deputy Chief Minister, the man who today says, we are the real Shiv Sena, we are the real Shiv Sainiks, they have left Guwahati, they are on